Hey, welcome to 86. So for those of you that don't know, I am a chef that specializes in talking to new cooks as well as getting them to get into better positions as they grow in their careers. If that's something that interests you, let me know in the comments below or by leaving a like. Otherwise, I wanted to talk about the Bay of Pigs today and how that relates to food service. Anybody that's followed this channel for any length of time know that I run a second channel called Political Shotgun, and that's not on YouTube, that's actually on TikTok. And on there, I talk about a lot of political content. And I was thinking to myself, what does the Bay of Pigs have to do with food service? And I was like, maybe I could tie this in somehow. And I actually can. So we're going to talk about the Bay of Pigs and how it relates to leadership in the kitchen. It's going to be a fun video today. And you're going to learn something. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, the Bay of Pigs was a thing that we tried to do in Cuba in 1961. JFK was the president at the time. And he tried to get a bunch of exiles to overthrow the Cuban government. But there were a lot of things that didn't work very well. And the plan went to shit and made things really bad in Cuba as far as like our relationship with Cuba, and exacerbated the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, it was one of the catalysts for it. And it was pretty bad. One of the reasons it failed so bad is because the decisions were being made in a vacuum. It was so secretive that other people weren't looped into it, and the plan ended up falling apart because there wasn't a diversity of opinions. And that's something that can actually happen in a kitchen as well. You can end up in these situations where leadership comes up with an idea and they don't like to talk to the other cooks, or maybe they don't even talk to the sous chef, I don't know, or they don't talk to front of house. And they start implementing changes without really talking about what those changes are, why they're doing them. Maybe they don't really talk about the budget or anything like that. So you can end up in a situation where you're implementing changes and people are like, what the hell is going on? A lot of this might happen when, especially if you're in a corporate environment, new menus getting rolled out and their rollout process sucks. So you have a whole new brand new menu. You come into work and you're like, why do we have 8 different things on the menu? Why are they all on sale? I don't know how to make any of this shit. And you get screwed, basically. This may not happen as much in a smaller run situation, or if it's like mom and pop kind of deal. But this does happen a lot in corporate environments because they don't know how to run anything. Like they don't actually, like, what people fail to realize is that when it comes to corporate things or even franchises, they are still people. And sometimes there's people that are in charge that don't actually know what they're doing. And maybe there's people involved that don't even do food service and they have more experience in a different area. So they don't know how their decisions up here impact the business down here. One other thing that this can also impact is if you are, you need to cut labor. Maybe there's been some labor issues. Too many people are on a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever the case may be. So you have to start moving people around, and you don't either get a new availability or you don't talk about it. You're not open and honest, and you just start messing with the schedule. That screws with people, especially if you have a family and somebody, like if you are in charge of a schedule, that schedule should be as consistent as possible. Now, I know that that's not always the case. I know that it's not always something that's possible because the needs of the restaurant shift. People request days off. There's all kinds of different things that can impact what the schedule actually ends up looking like at the end of the day. But ideally, if somebody is a closer, they're a closer. They don't come in the morning. They don't come in the afternoon. You don't randomly put them on a different shift. They are a closer. Do everything you can in your power to make sure they stay a closer. They keep their Monday, Tuesday day off, whatever the case may be. Something that some people get caught up in is they're thinking about the needs of the restaurant to the point where they don't realize that people make their plans around their schedule, sometimes in a month in advance. And they may not request off a Tuesday because they've gotten every Tuesday off for 8 months. So they don't think about it. They're like, oh yeah, we could go do that on Tuesday. I have the day off. That's my scheduled day off. We could go do XYZ on Tuesday. if they get scheduled on Tuesday, they're going to be pissed off. And those little tiny things like that snowball into them eventually wanting to look for a different job. And if you have been a cook anywhere for any length of time, you know how much it sucks to think that you're getting a day off that you're not actually getting, or you're getting less time off than you used to get, or whatever the case may be, especially if that's not communicated to you. Now, one of the other problems with the US and their desire to install leadership in other places. They've done this actually several times. They've done this they've had CIA backed in Libya. They've done this in Guatemala. They've tried to do this in the Congo as well. They've done this in Iran. So there's been several times where they've tried to do this. And whether you think that's bad or good, you can let me know in the comments. I'm not talking about whether or not their decisions were bad or good. But the problem is, this is puppet leadership. And you are putting somebody in charge of people that support your thoughts and ideas without the consent of the people that they are in charge of. Not only that, but in a lot of these cases, it might be somebody that you like, but's not actually good, or doesn't have the experience, or isn't familiar with a lot of the things that are going on with the current way things are, so to speak, in the country. And this actually applies in kitchens because this is basically a sous chef. This might happen with an insecure executive chef, and they install a sous chef that's their buddy, right? They're not looking for somebody that's actually qualified for the job. They're not hiring internally. They're like, well, I've been friends with this guy for years. I'm just going to make him the sous chef. And the guy may not even know how to cook. There's been a lot of people, trust me, that have gone through this. And a lot of times when you put this kind of person in place that's just going to do whatever you say and isn't really supported by the staff and doesn't really know how to do their job, the staff know it, okay? They know what's going on. They're not stupid. And they will do everything they can to work around them. You know, there are things in place that are in place for a reason that the staff have realized works better in order to get the positive results. And a lot of times what ends up happening is the sous chef sees this procedure and wants to change it, alter it, get rid of it, whatever. And it's what's making the restaurant run better. And so instead of working with the staff, they start working against the staff. And they don't want to listen to the guy. And then you're going to have all kinds of infighting and all kinds of problems. So it's really important that when you are looking for a new executive chef, you take this kind of stuff into account, where you want somebody, ideally you want somebody internal, because the dude that's been there for 10 years is going to be really pissed off if you bring in some schmuck that only has 2 years of experience and you guys are best friends. And, you know, there is a sense of entitlement that comes with working your ass off for years and years and years and years. Now, you may not be qualified for the position, which is a completely different conversation. But my point is, you want to try internal before going out. So one of the other things that happened in the 60s is this, even though this failed, they kept trying over and over again in different places to try and do the same thing. And it didn't really work out so well. And it got to the point where it would escalate tensions with other countries. This kind of represents the attempt at repeating the same thing over and over again because you think like maybe it'll work this time. If it didn't work the first time, it's not going to work the second time or the third time or the fourth time. Yelling at your staff, trying to act like a dictator over them, bossing them around, being a jerk, somebody calling in and you don't ever believe anybody when they're sick. All of this kind of stuff leads to lower morale. It leads to infighting. It leads to people quitting. Like, nobody wants to work for somebody that's a dick, right? Like, I get that there are times where it gets frustrating when you have somebody that is always calling out, that's always being lazy or whatever. If you need to replace somebody, right? But if there are situations where you have loyal workers that are doing everything they can and sometimes life happens, it's important that you show some humanity towards that and allow them to do what they need to do. Give them the time and don't make them feel like a piece of crap because they had to call out because something happened with their daughter or their wife or their husband or whatever the case may be. This kind of represents like the inner workings, the politics of a kitchen. People try to jockey for a position. There's kind of like a meta job that happens underneath the surface of the real job where people, they want to make moves on their own. They want to get better. They want to grow. A lot of people are watching this channel because they want to get better and they want to grow and they want to learn. It's just human nature. And there's other people that are also wanting to do the same thing. So if you have two ambitious people, they could end up butting heads, one of them could be toxic and think that they need to change things, and they just start changing shit. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? Sometimes people think that they're in charge when they're not, because they've been there for a long time. Maybe leadership hasn't been the greatest, and so they've felt like they've needed to stand up. Sometimes that could end up being a problem. But if you have one of these people, one of the things that's important to do is try to understand why they are doing things the way they are. Why is it that they feel the need to do those things? If you actually listen to them, maybe you can fix the conditions or implement the changes that they want to see, and it could end up being a positive thing. It's not always necessarily the best route to just ignore the person that is doing this stuff. Maybe they're doing it for a reason. But you can also talk to them and like, look, we're going to implement these changes, but in the future, this is what I need from you. And these are my expectations, blah, 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 blah. Realistically, I'm doing all of this. Like, this was a fun way of tying politics into the cook line, but I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about communication. I'm talking about learning from your mistakes, not repeating failures. And I think that if you take a step back, kind of look at objectively the situation and take your personal stake in it, or, you know, your own feelings out of the equation, and just, you know, you got the restaurant, you're looking at the restaurant, and you can see it from, you know, a whole standpoint, like everything. It's easier to make the decisions and then just communicate those decisions, whatever those are going to be. Sometimes there's a change that's really easy to implement, and maybe you don't see it because you weren't looking at the whole situation, or maybe you're not communicating to your staff. Maybe front of house and back of house feel like they're two separate sides and they're like versus each other. There's been so many kitchens that I've worked at or that I've seen that the back of house thinks like they're in competition with the front of house, when really they need to be working together. They need to be talking about pacing. You know, Outer Expo needs to have that communication. If you've ever had an issue with leadership, let me know in the comments below and let me know what that situation was. Or if you're a leader that's been struggling, let me know about that too. Also, if you have any content ideas, let me know in the comments below. I'm always open to those. You know, all that being said, I did want to take a minute and say that I do appreciate anybody that stuck around to the end. There's been a lot of stuff going on behind the surface. People that have seen my background change when I had all the books and stuff like that. I moved out of the office because we were helping take care of a German Shepherd and some puppies, and we needed the tile floor space for her to help raise the puppies. They all got adopted. Everything was good. But ever since then, things have been really disheveled, and I've been trying to get things more organized and better. And I think we're starting to get into a place where we can do that. You know, I've talked about burnout in the past, and that is something that I've definitely been going through. And I've recognized that I had to kind of put the brakes on some of this for a while. I put in about 55 hours a week at my job. And if you total the commute time, it's about 67 hours I spend away from the house. And when I'm home, I have a family, you know, and that's important to me. And if I am doing this, there's things that I'm not doing for the family, and I've had to take a step back for a little bit. So sometimes you might see shorts from me when I'm in my car. That's me driving to or from work. Maybe I might put out more videos that are just shorter, or maybe I'll spread them out. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm not stopping the channel. I'm not quitting. I'm dedicated. You guys have shown me absolute love by subscribing, being active in the comments, and telling me that my videos have helped. And that really does keep me going in a way that I don't really give that appreciation enough on this channel. So I did want you to know that I do really appreciate and respect that. And I want to keep doing this. But that being said, if you have any video suggestions or things that you want to learn about, let me know in the comments below. I am trying to work with restaurants to get in to kind of take the channel to the next level. People, there's only a handful of people that know this, because I told people where I worked when I only had like 50 subscribers. And there's a couple people that still know, and they've been respectful and not putting where I work in the comments. And I do appreciate that, and I hope that continues. But I work somewhere that it sounds silly to say I work somewhere where there are government secrets, but I do. There are things that I see on a regular basis that I can't even talk about on the channel. There's a lot of heavy restrictions on recording, or even taking pictures. There's things that need to be approved by security, and so I can't just like walk around and like film the walk-in and all of the, like, I can't just walk around with my camera out filming everything, right? So what I'm going to try to do is work with restaurants in my area to see if they'll let me into their kitchen, and I can kind of talk about things in an objective way. And I could either talk about the restaurant itself, or I can not put the name of the restaurant, but kind of show you how things work in different restaurants and stuff like that. So if that's something that interests you, stick around. I don't know how many people I'm going to get to work. Maybe they'll see the channel, they'll hate it, they won't want to do it. But if they do, or if you're one of those restaurants and you're in my local area, let me know. But otherwise, you guys have an amazing day. Thanks again, and I will see you on the next one. Peace. Hey, everybody. So it has been a minute. Depression sucks. Anyways, I want to know. Don't start it with depression sucks. Oh, my God. It is 4:30 in the morning, bro. 4:43.